Well, turkey season has come and gone, and deer season, well, it's not here yet. You know, as bow hunters, we're already looking forward to the start of deer season and all of our gear that we're getting prepped for the season. Now, we love our gear, but you know, we're always looking for the next best thing when it comes to our bow hunting gear. So we figured here at TGR, what better way to dig into our gear than to do a fully comprehensive broadhead test. In front of me, I have 10 different broadheads. Now, they're all mechanicals because you know we love our mechanicals, and that's what we're gonna stick to for this test. We have 7 heads in the 2-blade category, and we have 3 heads in the 3-blade category. Everybody from Beast to Rage to G5 to Speed, even Grim Reaper. We're gonna run all of these heads through 8 different testing mechanisms. We'll be using things like ballistics gel, blowing them up on steel. We'll be running them through accuracy tests. We'll even be grading their out-of-the-box capabilities. So, guys, let's dig in. TGR's comprehensive mechanical broadhead test. Test number 1, out-of-the-package evaluation. Now, in this test, we're gonna look at 7 different aspects that you could expect to gauge before you ever fly one of these broadheads downrange or at an animal. We're gonna start with cutting diameter, blade thickness. We're gonna look at weight consistency, so your mass weight consistency. We're gonna gauge the sharpness of these heads. We're then gonna spin test them just to make sure that there's not any unexpected influence placed on these from poor manufacturing. We're also going to look at the ferrule material, and then we're gonna look at price per head and give you an overall ranking of what you could expect to get as you pull these broadheads out of the package. So let's move on to the board and let's start with writing down what we know. All right, guys, so we're gonna start our out of the package evaluation with the Beast Titanium. So I'm going to first measure with the micrometer. So we're gonna measure 2 things, 1 being cutting diameter, and then 2, we're gonna get into blade thickness. So I'm going to press the tip of that ferrule right up against there so I have a consistent measurement. I have 1.965 on that measurement. I'm just making sure I'm clean on both sides. I am. Okay, so 1.965 for a measured cutting diameter. And just so you know, all these blades are going to be in their locked position. So they'll be in their locked position where they set. Now let's look at blade thickness. I am getting a 0.035, so 35 thou. 35 thou is what we're getting out of blade thickness. All right, now let's go on ahead and turn our scale on. And we'll go to weight. Now we're gonna measure all 3 or weigh all 3 of the broadheads to 1, see how they compare to the 100 grain claim, and then 2, see what the consistency is across each one. So we're tiered already. I'm gonna drop this right in here. We've got 100 even for the first head. Head number 2 is 100 even again. Nice consistency. And then head number 3, let that settle, 99.8. So 2 at 100 and 99.8 at the last one. So you know what, I'm gonna do spin test. Let's go on ahead and do spin test, and then we'll run our sharpness here. So we pull that right into here, and we'll just go on ahead and spin that thing. Now everything looks pretty clean on that test. I'm not seeing any real movement coming out of that at all to the naked eye. Everything looks pretty darn clean. So I'd say a clean spin test. And now the fun one, the sharpness test. So I'm gonna lay this right here under the camera for you. Guys, if you were in like a manufacturing setting and you weren't right here in the range at Anthem Archery with the old redneck laden force running the sharpness test, you would probably have some type of a mechanism that would drop this thing down and apply as consistent of pressure as possible and as good of an angle as possible. So do understand that there is a little human involvement on this one, but I'm gonna do my best to keep this thing perpendicular to the cutting plane and then apply slow pressure. So 160 is what I've got there in regards to measurement. So those are our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 measurements that we're gonna take that we didn't already know. We're gonna go on ahead and go over to the board and write these out for us here. All right, we're gonna move on to the Rage Hypo 2. This is a collared broadhead here that just came out from Rage last year. Let's see, let's go on ahead. We'll measure our cutting diameter. Okay, we are at 2.006 cutting diameter on this, 2.006. All right, now let's go blade thickness. I'm actually gonna measure this on one that is in the locked position. As we said, 3.5 claim and 3.5 it is, so pretty consistent. Let's go on ahead and let's get mass measurements. So we're at 100.4. Broadhead number 2, 100.2. And broadhead number 3, 100 even. Scale over here, my micrometer over here. We're gonna spin test this thing. So I'm gonna put it right here. To the naked eye, again, really consistent spin. In a good spot. On the spin test, it's gonna get the check. And let's get the best scale out again here and measure our sharpness. I'm again gonna use a locked head. All right. And I am going to try to get this in 3 to 4 seconds, right there. 255 is what I've got there on the sharpness test. All right, our next broadhead is going to be the Trypan NC or no collar. We're gonna dive right in here with cutting diameter, 2.08. Let's go blade thickness. Gonna measure that. Let's scoot right on down. Got a claim 0.39 on this one. 0.39 it is, 0.39. Let's go on ahead and measure all three. That is gonna settle on 100.4. Go ahead and drop that one on here. 100.8. Yeah, let's get the third one. 100 even. Okay, get that centered up. Not seeing any noticeable wobble to that. All right, so it's gonna pass the spin test. And last but not least, we're gonna go on ahead, set up our sharpness test here. Okay, right at 300 on that, right at 300. All right, so we're moving on here to the Trypan Plus P. So this is gonna be the one broadhead that has less than a 2-inch cutting diameter stated. It's stated at 1.75, so I'm gonna start out right out of the gate at measuring. I'm gonna pin that. There we go. I've got 1.751. 1.751 is where I'm at on that. So blade thickness, which again, this is a Trypan, so it's gonna have a 0.039 or 39 thou measurement should. All right, 0.039 thickness is what we have. 0.039 thickness. First one's on there, and we are at 97.8. Next one is at 98.6. And the third broadhead here out of the package, 99. Yeah, it's clean. That thing flies super clean. Sweet. All right, so passes the spin test. Check, check to the naked eye. All right, now the sharpness test. Okay, 225. 225. We've seen that number before. Okay, it is time for us to evaluate the Hypo NC here. I'm gonna go on ahead and lock in on cutting diameter right out of the gate. 2.034. So 35 thou on that as well. Just make sure that you can see that in the camera there. Weight variance, carried at 0, and I can put that right there. So I have 103.2 on the first one, 103.2. Put that on there, 103.2. And, oh, showed 103. Oh, it's kind of bouncing back and forth between, I'm gonna call it 103. 103. There we go. And spin that. Super, super clean spin. No variation noticed by the eye. 310. 310 is where we ended up on that one. All right, our next broadhead is the Speed Titanium. This is a new broadhead to market. We're gonna go ahead, dive in just like we have everything else. So cutting diameter wise right here, 2.004. Okay, thickness, 0.039, so 39 thou. So first mass measurement, 99.2 on the first one. Second mass measurement, 98.8. 99.2. I'm gonna call it 99.2. It's kind of bouncing back and forth, but I'm gonna go 99.2 on that. I'm getting just a little bit of wobble out of this one. I can see some visible movement out of this one. I'm gonna test one more just in case. I'm seeing the same thing on this one, just with the naked eye. I'm getting I can see a little bit of front end movement on this. So this would be the first one that I am gonna say I'm seeing movement on, and I've seen it out of 2 of them. $245 best on that one. All right, we've come to the last of our 2-blade broadheads. This is the T2 from G5. We're gonna go ahead and measure cutting diameter. I'm gonna go ahead and pin that against the table right there. I've got 1.973. Okay, I've got a 0.035 or a 35 thou measurement on blade thickness. Broadhead number 1, 100.2. Broadhead number 2, 100 even. Broadhead number 3, 100.6. Okay, spin. Super clean. Yeah, that spin test super clean. 215. 215 is our sharpness measurement there. All right, guys, we are going to kick off our 3-blade contestants, the evaluation of these. Now, I'm gonna tell you right out of the gate, these guys are a little harder to manipulate and measure when it comes to measurement of the cutting diameter, so I'm gonna explain that quickly. What we are going to do is measure from point A to point B and then multiply by 2. So point A is gonna be the center point of the ferrule. Point B is going to be the endpoint of the blade at a locked position. We'll multiply that by 2. That will give us our cutting diameter. So you're gonna see that I've already got that set. I'm not gonna touch it. I'm not gonna jack with it because I don't wanna bump it. It's really, really super technical. So for this, I have a measurement of 1.005. So that will surpass the claimed 2-inch cutting diameter. That's gonna put it at 2.01 if I did my math right. And that should be in a good spot there. So that is our measurement. Now let's measure our blade thickness. 35 thou right there, right out of the gate. You can see that, so again, matches the claim. Right out of the gate, I am getting 99 grains for the first broadhead. Second broadhead, I am getting 98 point, I'm gonna call it 98.4. It's kind of bouncing between 98.4 and 98.6. There, and the third one, 99.0, so 99 again. So got that, awesome. Okay, that thing spins clean. Oh, good, got a little out of control there, lady. Yeah, super clean. All right, so it passes the spin test. 250. 250 is what I got out of that. So not too surprising that that's kind of right in the middle, if not on the lower end of what we've seen. That sucker has got some sharp blades. Here we go with broadhead number 2 in the 3-blade category. We have the Mega Meat from G5 in front of us. Again, I'm not gonna jack with this because it is a very specific measurement and it's sensitive. So I have this laid out in the same fashion from point A to point B. We have a measurement of 1.005. So 1 5 thousandths. So that is going to put this broadhead at 2.01 overall. So we're gonna take that point A to point B, multiply it by 2, and put it just over 2 inches. Blade thickness, I'm getting 0.00325, so 0.032. All right, first broadhead is going to come in at 100.6 grams. Second broadhead, 101.4, and third broadhead, 101.4 on that. So those are our mass measurements of the 3. I'm getting a little bit of wobble out of this one, not as much as I was seeing in the speed, but I am getting a little bit of wobble. I'm gonna check one more head and see if that's something that is noticeable. That one I'm not seeing it, so I'll take that back. I'm seeing just a wee bit of wobble out of this one. I wouldn't say it's not near as pronounced as what we saw out of the Speed TI, but I am seeing just a little bit of wobble on that towards the end of the ferrule there. So I don't know where to judge that one. 175 is where we came in on that one. So 175 is our sharpness measurement. The third and final broadhead in our 3-blade category is going to be the Whitetail Special from Grim Reaper. I've got that right in front of me. As you see, we're gonna be very particular with our measurement again. I'm not gonna touch it, just don't wanna knock it off. I have point A to point B, we'll multiply that by 2. I have 1.050 right here. So 51 and 50 thou, that's gonna put us over the 2-inch cutting diameter that is claimed. I'm gonna set that aside. Actually, I may just go on ahead. Blades, let's measure blade thickness. Blade thickness I have at 0.35 or 35 thou. So 35 thou on the blade thickness. All right, I have 105 point, I'm gonna call it 0.6 grains, 105.6 grains on one. I have 106 grains. And number 3, I need to take this off because it's gonna add some weight. So let's add that in there. 105.2 grains, 105.2 grains. All right, let's go ahead and spin that, dude. That one spins good. It's clean. Yeah, looks clean. So passes the spin test. All right. 345 that time. On that, so that'll be our highest sharpness measurement there. That was clean. Just gave it a second try because I thought I might have bumped it with my finger pressure wise. I'm gonna settle in at 345 on that one. things are about to get interesting. This is where the rubber meets the road. We are gonna send all 10 broadheads through 22 gauge steel downrange. We are looking forward to this. So what we're looking to do here is to understand a few things with this test. One, will the broadheads attempt to expand as they engage the steel? Two, how do the blades hold up? Three, how does the ferrule hold up? And we'll see what's still standing. Let's put our glasses on. Let's get ready to go. For repeatability purposes, we have everything taped off with our Pro Vise. We have everything taped off with our steel. We even have our draw stop taped off, so everything should be repeated, shot after shot after shot. Our first contestant is going to be the Beast Titanium. Fire. Yeah, buddy. Let's go see what we've got. All right, so it looks like we got full deployment, or the blade's definitely deployed anyway. Let's just get a quick measurement on this. So it looks like we are at 1.258. So 1.258. Let's go ahead and check this out. I'm actually surprised. First look at everything for what that just went through. So, like we said, we want to measure really, or kind of take note of three major things. One, did the blades deploy, which they did. Not full on the steel. They're at 1.258, like we talked about, 1.258 inches. And then we're going to take a look at blades. So, if you look at the blades, as a whole, they're intact, but the edge it's jacked. There's quite a bit of chattering on the blades. The ferrule, I'm just trying to look for deformation or deformities on the ferrule. There's some scratches there, but again, like no major. There's some wobble there. So no noticeable bends, but there's definitely a wobble. This broadhead spun a lot cleaner out of the gate. So all in all, like I'm gonna say, like, blades are still intact, ferrule's still intact. Better than I expected going through 22 gauge steel, but there's definitely some damage to the broadhead. Integrity wise, all around, it added up. Okay, we're gonna continue the test here. Broadhead number 2, the Rage Hypo 2. All right, we're knocked and ready. Okay, fire in the hole. Oh. One thing's certain here, we've got a larger cutting diameter. 1.883 right there. Okay, blade obviously fully deployed. Let's go over here. Initial look, we have some bend in blade 1. Blade 2 doesn't have too much bend to it, but we do have, well, we have some bend backward. I'll take that back. The ferrule, at first look, just to the naked eye, looks pretty solid, actually. But no blades came off. The ferrule doesn't have much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go on ahead and just reset this collar here on this so that as we spin it, we get a true look at what we're wanting to do. I mean, at first glance, to me, the ferrule doesn't have too much wobble to it. It's just the bent blades that we're seeing. Oh, there it came open. So, man, overall, like, very impressive. The cutting diameter on the steel is larger than Broadhead 1 by about 3/10. So not full deployment, but only a 1/10 off of 2 inches in entirety. But yeah, man, not too bad. Blade number 3 of 7 on the 2-blade test. Here we have the Trypan no collar. Fire in the hole. All right, grab our micrometer. That's my measurement. So I am at 1.148. on cutting diameter on steel. As far as chattering, yeah, I can see it kind of on both sides, blade-wise. So we're seeing some of that. Blade is not bent on, I'm gonna call blade 1. Blade 2, I'm not seeing too much bend to it either. So we have a 39 thou thickness on this. It's early to say this, but so far maybe not as much damage. Again, speaking to that rigidity of a thicker blade that we spoke a lot about. Now, as far as the ferrule goes, we do have a little bit of a turn here on the point of the ferrule. It's not like a true, what I call a true turn. It just looks like it dulled the point just a little bit and kind of pushed it back. But I'm gonna go on ahead and close this back up. Still flying pretty tight. I feel like there's just a wee bit of wobble, just a wee bit, but looking pretty good, man. Broadhead number 4 of the 2-blade segment of our broadhead test here. This is going to be the Trypan Plus P. So this is a very well-known broadhead. This is the only broadhead that has a stated cutting diameter of under 2 inches in the hole test, let alone the 2-blade test. So here we go. Fire in the hole. Dude, this thing is gonna come out probably pretty darn close. I'll go right there. 1.687, 1.668 on a 1.75 stated cutting diameter. So blade's definitely deployed. Okay, we have the Trypan Plus P here. I'm gonna take a quick look at it. We'll replace the collar when we go to spin it because this actually broke the tabs, the keys off. So first thing, a little chattering on the tops of the blades. As far as bend, I see just a little bit, I don't know, maybe just a little bend in blade 2, which would be the left blade. So it'd be that blade right there, just a little bit, not a ton. As far as ferrule goes, very similar to the standard Trypan, that no collar. We have just a little bit of the blunting of the tip of the ferrule. And that's about it. It doesn't look like it really rolled it over. There may be a little lip there on the right side of that tip. But all in all, blades are intact, ferrule's intact. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Let me see if we can get an accurate read on at least the ferrule. Blade 2 is bent well enough. That was the one I was looking at that I was pretty sure I could see some bend in. Let me just see if we can't. It's going to look a little floppy, but let's just focus on the ferrule and see if we can't notice any. I'm not seeing any wobble necessarily. No, that's just broadhead, or that's just blades. I'm not seeing wobble out of, and I've got a little bit of target fuzz there. Let me take that off. It's hard to gauge, but I'm not seeing, you know, noticeable bend in the ferrule. All right, in my hands, I have broadhead number 5. This is the Rage Hypo no collar. This is gonna be the last Rage contestant in the 2-blade side. Fire in the hole. Right. Okay, 1.366 on the steel cutting diameter. Okay, so we're gonna take a look at this here. We did get deployment and we did get full penetration. You can see here we've got quite a bit of bend to the blades, and we have a little damage here to the collar system, or not collar, but the actual no collar system on the inside of the blade. That's what's going to hold and retain or create retention with those blades in the closed position. I'm not going to be able to close this thing, so I'm not going to attempt it. First glance at the ferrule, like, man, the ferrule looks pretty darn good. I'm not seeing any bending. The tip is actually still intact. Blades are intact. Ferrule is intact. Blades did deploy, I think it's probably worth noting on these Rage designs that the no collar designs are built for penetration. We've seen and have, I guess you could say, proved out the strategy behind the no collar design of penetration. We don't get as much blade deployment on that initial cut through steel, whereas the collared broadheads, both of them, the Trypan plus P and the Hypo 2, had much better cutting diameters, much bigger cutting diameters. They're actually made to optimize that cutting diameter. So for those of you who know the Rage product line, you probably know that already, but I just want to call that out as we're reviewing this. Second to last broadhead here in the two-blade competition. This is the Speed TI or Speed Titanium. This is this internal piston retention system. So it'll be interesting to see how this rolls. We are set. About to send the Speed downrange. All right, let's see what we got here. So everything to date has been pretty uniform as far as deployment goes, but this one, it looks like we definitely have a shorter side retention wise. Bring that back to there just a little bit more, maybe just, okay. 1.713 is the measurement, 1.713. But I'm just gonna use, well, you can see with your eyes right here, this bottom blade definitely opened up a lot more than the top blade, which is interesting because, like I said, everything to date has been pretty uniform out of the first 5 broadheads. So that's the first time we've seen that. All right, so I'm noticing a little bit of blade bend here in blade 1. I'm gonna go ahead and set that there so my shaky hands aren't doing that. So let's call that blade 1. We're seeing some upward bend in the blade. And then in blade 2, we're seeing some downward bend in the blade. Ferrule wise, yeah, there's quite a bit of damage to the tip. It's blunted it out pretty hard, kind of like we saw with the Trypans, but more. And there's a little bit of bend back to it. So let's try to, remember we are seeing wobble out of these to begin with. And I would tell you I'm still seeing a little bit of that wobble here. So nothing too surprising, but overall, like I said, it seems that something opened before the other. One blade opened before the other, so you had transfer of energy, and then what we saw on the backside is that arrow kicked pretty hardcore, diverting that energy for you there. All right, final broadhead in the two-blade category. This is the G5T2. We're gonna load this up here, and that will be our last two-blade. Here we go. Oh boy. Yep, I like it. 1.68 bend on both blade 1 and 2, which you can see there is past the meat of this blade. They immediately bent off. Same thing there, both blade 1 and blade 2. Now, ferrule wise, let me go on ahead and pull that. So I did have some rollover of the ferrule here. This is not just blunting, but it definitely folded the tip of the ferrule over, which is going to be kind of hard to sharpen out of. Man, it's actually spinning pretty true, but big time blade damage on the end. You can see it mangled them up pretty good. A lot of chattering across. I mean, like the edge, I can see the edge completely folded over all the way down. So the two-blade portion of our extreme durability test, or shooting them through 22 gauge steel, has been completed. Some interesting results there, but now we're going to kick off the 3-blade. We have 3 contestants. We are going to start with the Tyrant by Rage, brand new broadhead out on the market. See how this bad boy flies. Get our level here. Okay, here we go. Tyrant downrange. Oh, I already like what I'm seeing here. Wow! Dude, look at the hole on that sucker in this steel. Get out. So what we did on these to measure them, I'm gonna try to find an approximate distance that would complete that circle. We don't have our compass here. We're gonna go to right there. So I've got 1.497. Let me just, yeah, that's the best way to do it. So we're just gonna connect our circle. So 1.497 is our cutting diameter. Just look at that thing. I gotta be careful doing this, but I can stick my dang finger through that hole in the steel. That is awesome. All right, so we've got the tyrant here in front of us. Just first look inspections, the ferrule, the tip, which we talked a lot about this being an aluminum ferrule with a titanium tip and having that first point of impact being titanium just to provide strength. And I will tell you that the tip of that ferrule is in good shape. I don't see any mangling. I don't see a blunted tip. I do see just maybe a little bit of deformity on the end of the tip, but I think everything's looking pretty good so far. Now, blade-wise, I'm gonna set this in here and we'll take a look at it. There is for sure some bend in blade 1. Blade 2 has a little bit of bend back here behind the body, which I would come to expect after running through 7 of the 2 blades. Those blades that had more blade behind the meat of that that blade that kind of rolls up in here into the camming system, they all had a little bit of bend, but this is not near as bad as what we saw out of a lot of those 2 blades. So some chattering, you know, rolled over the edge just a little bit there on blade 3. So yeah, blade damage is there. Now let's try to go ahead and take this collar off. All right, so let's see what we got here. Looking pretty good, like spin-wise, everything seems to be in line as far as the ferrule goes. So what I would say, these blades do appear to be replaceable on this. You could put new blades on this ferrule and be ready to rock and roll. I would definitely shoot that ferrule again. All right, blade number 2 here in the 3-blade class. We have got the Mega Meat from G5. We're going ahead and put my safety glasses on. All right, Mega Meat's going down range. Ooh, I hear tinking. All right, so pretty good hole as far as where the ferrule went through, but at the same time, not near as big as what we saw out of the new Tyrant. 1.14. 1.14 is what I'm going to come up with. Put that right there, 1.14. Oh, this is interesting. So, first broadhead out of, let's see, 9. This is number 9 that we've tested. Looky there. There's not a blade intact. All right, so I'm gonna go on ahead, I'm just gonna lay this on our spin here. As you can see, not a blade intact. I can't really tell you what they look like because I don't know where they are, somewhere down range. As far as ferrule integrity, I'm getting just a wee bit of wobble on that too. I'm guessing that there was probably some bending that happened just with the energy ripping those blades off. All right, we have the final 3-blade contestant here, the Grim Reaper Whitetail Special. The final contestant overall. This is Broadhead number 10 that we're gonna send through steel for the ultimate or extreme durability test. All right, Grim Reaper going hot. Woo. Wow. So first glance, I'm gonna guess that this thing probably didn't deploy until it got through the steel, if it did. Look at our entrance hole cutting diameter. It is very, very small. I'm gonna go 0.752 on cutting diameter measurement. Like I said, I'm guessing, and we were real curious to see what this did, but I'm guessing that thing didn't open up until it got past the steel here. All right, welcome to the wound channel and penetration test. Here we are going to be sending each of the 10 broadheads downrange into pro grade ballistics gel, 10% gel. We are also going to be simulating hide with actual beef hide. So this is a soft beef hide on the front to simulate the hide of our big game. So let's get after it. Let's send some broadheads downrange. Hypo 2 from Rage. All right, Trypan no collar here, broadhead number 3. Penetration not as deep as our Beast and Hypo 2 out of the gate, but good center hit. We've got the Rage Trypan Plus P. Look at the cutting diameter on the entrance wound on leather. So compare that to the Trypan no collar and what we're seeing here. And penetration, I'm gonna say like it's maybe just short of the Hypo 2 that we saw and the Beast, but it's right there with it. The wound channel, super consistent from beginning to end. The Hypo no collar, so the hypodermic no collar. So a little less penetration that we're seeing out of this, but good consistent wound channel, big wound channel for sure. I'd say for sure over 2 inches here in the beginning. All right, Speed Titanium here. So it seems as if, man, like it's almost taken some energy away. This is what we've seen consistently with both steel and gel now when we've run this broadhead into its deployed position. Yeah, you can actually see the cut is less on entrance as well. So that's almost identical to what we saw with steel as far as how the blade was oriented and hit. Bottom blade opened halfway or deployed halfway. All right, last broadhead in the 2-blade category for the wound channel and penetration test. We have the T2 from G5. Here we go, we're kicking off the 3-blade section of our test here. We have got the Whitetail Special from Grim Reaper. We're gonna send into gel. We're real curious to see how this works because this is an over-the-top blade deployment design here. All right, second 3-blade broadhead here. We have the Tyrant by Rage. We're gonna send this down range. I'm gonna reorientate my knock. Dude, the entrance wound on this thing, whether it's steel or in this case gel and leather, look at that. I'm guessing we've got a little bit of energy pushback because see how that leather's actually come back this way. But now, if I were to compare this to the 3-blade we just shot, which was the Whitetail Special, much better penetration by probably 2 inches. What's impressive though, man, like look at that entrance wound. Last broadhead of the test, this is the Mega Meat from G5. Not only is it the last broadhead, it's the last 3-blade that we're gonna attempt. So I will tell you, I'm not sure if that's a product. We did see that come off with the double-sided tape, but it looks like we have more cut out of that top blade than we do the bottom two. A little more penetration than what we're seeing out of the Tyrant here by probably an inch, to be fair, 1.5 inches. And one thing I don't see is that corkscrew effect that we saw with the Tyrant. So it's just a straight cut. All right, welcome to the bone impact test. This is a test that we are super excited about, sending all 10 of these broadheads downrange to see what the results are. We're not sure that this has ever been done actually in the industry. So earlier we mentioned a little bit of redneck science. Well, you're gonna see it here in our setup, but props to Nathan, our man that has us set up. So we are going to emulate a little bit of body mass in front of the shoulder blade and then see how the broadhead reacts, not only as it goes through the bone, but then on the back side of the bone in more cavity matter. So 10 broadheads, we're gonna start out with the 2-blade Beast Titanium, and we're all geeked to see how this turns out. Fire. I'm still not seeing full expansion or deployment of the head. I will tell you that was something that we saw just a little bit characteristically of this Beast Titanium as it got down range, so, or down target, I guess you would say, once it's in the body mass. So you can really see this thing kind of start to shut up or close back up as it gets further down the shaft. Fire in the hole. All right, we have the tri-pan no collar, broadhead number 3 of the 2-blade test. Everybody ready? Good cut on contact with the cutting diameter of the entry point. Tri-pan plus P here. So broadhead number 4 of the 2-blade category. Everybody ready? As soon as it came out of the scapula on the backside here, it's already reestablished its fully deployed position. This is the hypo no collar, or NC as we've been calling it. Fire away. Ooh, hit a little bit more of the spine here. It's gonna be interesting to see how this one turns out. So it basically went through the clavicle, folded as it went around the spine, tried to establish or reestablish a little bit, and then just folded back in here as it hit the 3rd layer. Pretty content with how it reestablished itself. So like I said, not full deployment. It's not sitting in its full deployment status. I don't know, without pulling it out, if there's any bend to the blade. I can't really tell that from below, but I can tell you that it reestablished in a pretty good place. So I would say like 5/8 of what the other is. That's broadhead T2. I mean, probably the cleanest, widest wound channel that I've seen post scapula of everything we've done yet. All right, first broadhead from the 3-blade category. This versus the gel test that we saw earlier is a little more impressive, and my guess is that because of the fact that it's an over-the-top deployment system, when it hit that bone contact, it went on ahead and it looks like it forced at least this upper blade and the lower blade to open up a little bit quicker. All right. Fire in the hole. So what we did was we went ahead and threw some leather on the front of this because of these T3s. We wanted to try to better simulate, you know, contact on hide and the way that those things engage on the backside with the Tyrant, and then also the Mega Meat. We're gonna shoot the Mega Meat next, but looking at the Tyrant, man, you can tell the blades did what they were supposed to. And I'm gonna tell you right now, like that wound channel coming out of this thing, reestablished quickly, and it looks that it reestablished on all 3 blades. Well, it has turned into Arby's here on the range. We have the meats. You're going to see that for the next test, we're going to be shooting each one of the broadheads through its own pork shoulder. We want to see what these broadheads do to actual meat. This is a boneless pork shoulder, so it's going to be more of a visual entry-exit wound. Can it pass through on real meat kind of test? Not really objective, not really subjective, kind of somewhere in the middle. We just want to show you what these broadheads will do on actual meat tissue. So let's get started. We're going to go with the Beast Titanium as our first broadhead test, or broadhead 2 test. And here we do the first 10. Here we go. Okay, we just finished up the real meat test. Now remember, the goal here was to gauge entry and exit wounds as well as tissue damage, and then just kind of try to get some type of a gauge of the likelihood of pass-through. So not really anything that we could scientifically take a look at, and I think at the end of the day, this is gonna be a lot more of a highlight reel as you see meat blowing out all over the place. But we're gonna give some sort of a scoring assessment here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go 1 for the higher performers, 2 for the middle of the road performers, 3 for anybody that just didn't really perform that well. Best performers, I'm gonna go T2 is gonna get a 1. Speed TI, actually, I'm gonna go on ahead and give this Broadhead on this one a 1. So middle of the road entry, really big exit on the back end. Hypo 2, better entry, so that's gonna be north of 1.5, I think, on that one where we ended up. Trypan, small entry, so I'm not gonna give it a 1. Trypan plus P, 1 there on the 2-blade side. So let's go ahead and fill these out. We didn't have any just real bad performers, just a couple with smaller entries. So 2 on the Beast Titanium, 2 on the Trypan no collar, had a really big exit wound. And then the Hypo NC, I'm gonna give it a 2 as well. Let's move on to the 3-blade. Really the only, I would say, lower performer in the overall category. I'm gonna go with the Whitetail Special here. It is going to earn the only 3, reason being super small entry, super small exit, and it did not expand the blades or deploy the blades all the way. Kind of figured that would happen because we don't have a ton of mass there in that pork shoulder, and really we've seen in every other test that outside of the scapula test that it did not open early because of the over-the-top deployment system. So we're gonna give it a 3. On the Tyrant, I'm gonna go on ahead, I'm gonna go 1. And man, like on the Mega Meat, I'm gonna go on ahead, I'm gonna give it a 3 as well, and I'm gonna tell you why. Once again, we had 1 blade that did not fully deploy, and we've seen that across multiple tests. For some reason, these Mega Meats that we are running, we've just had this consistent factor of a blade not fully deploying, if not maybe 2 in a couple cases. So I'm gonna put it right here in the 3, right next to the Whitetail Special. Hopefully you get just a little bit of a realistic look at what these Broadheads are going to do on resemblant meat consistency of venison. So there you go. Okay, fire in the hole. Broadhead number 1. Broadhead number 2 from the Beast TI. All right, so we're coming up on our Beast TI group here, and I'm gonna tell you, like out of the gate, super impressive where we landed. All 3 Broadheads are here to the left. We have our field tip to the right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at overall group size for the Broadhead arrows, and then we'll look at deviation from aiming point, which we're gonna call our field tip our aiming point. So let's see, overall group size, widest point, we're just gonna go to those 2 widest arrows. 1.36 to the outside, 1.36, so an inch, 1.36 inches at 40 yards. I would say that's a win. Now let's go middle point of that group to the outside of our field tip arrow, 1.93 inches. So 1.93 inches. We'll see how the rest of the class ranks out, but I'm gonna tell you right now, that's a pretty impressive group to me at 40 yards, just seeing what we've got. And the deviation from our field tip, it's all feasible. I would adjust that probably, you know, on my Spot Hog sight, 3-4 clicks left, and I'd be in a pretty good spot as far as Broadheads go. We're shooting the Hypo 2 from Rage. This Broadhead has done very well in the tests that we've been running so far. So field tip, fire in the hole. I heard slappage. Let's go check out our results here. All right, guys, Hypo 2 from Rage. Now, we're gonna see a bigger deviation here. I'm gonna say that may be the one thing that we might add a little human error or redneck error to and things. We're still gonna measure that just to see how things go, but I want you to look at this group right here, just already in what we've seen out of the 2. Much smaller group, 1.05. So 1 and 5 thou is the measurement. And then if we go from point of aim, we're getting about a 4.73 deviation on these. So give or take, but we should see that. That should actually be pretty consistent across the whole field. I'm impressed with how tight this group is right here. Ooh, I heard slappage again. There we go, let's go check what we got. Let's go on ahead here and measure our overall deviation from measuring point, group size, 3.23 with the flyer. I'm gonna guess that something probably happened here just a little bit when we got a flyer. Let's check our overall deviation from aiming point. 1.4 in that direction. 2.2. There we go. That is the Tri-Pan no collar. Okay, so we're getting ready to shoot the Tri-Pan plus P right now. We're gonna send our aiming point field tip downrange. What we have, I don't know if you can see it, but we have an upward angle out of the shaft, which means there was contact back here. I'm gonna go on ahead and I'm gonna measure, for the sake of science, thank you, that's a good word right there. I'm gonna guess where I can see the little indentation here that we're probably gonna be somewhere in the neighborhood of, so 0.7, so 0.7. So I'm gonna measure from that mark, group-wise, we're at about 2.4 on the overall group for Broadhead. And then I'm gonna do the same thing for deviation from field tip or aiming point, 3.15. All right, Broadhead number 5 in the 2-blade category. This is the Rage Hypo No Collar. All right, so this is the Hypo no collar that we've thrown down range. Pretty good group here. I am noticing a flyer again, so I'm glad we have got our fletchings numbered now. That is fletching number 1. We're gonna remember that one. But overall, group size for the Broadheads at 40 yards when it comes to the no collar, 2.7 is where we're at. And then deviation from aiming point, 1.98 is our deviation from aiming point. All right, here we go. Field tip for the speed. So field tip right here, where it hit, everything else is kind of surrounding it. So overall deviation of, we are at 4.73. Our biggest point from center, 2.71. 2.71 on our largest deviation from holding point, or field tip. Okay, we've got the T2, our final 2-blade that we're about to shoot. I'm gonna send the field tip down range. A little more indicative of what we saw out of the first 2 groups, being the Beast and the Hypo 2. I like this group here. This is the kind of group we're looking to see. Let's see, T2, 1.489 for the group. Now let's look at deviation from field tip or aiming point. We're at about 3.7. And again, like I was talking about earlier, when you get this big of a deviation from field point, it may just be that that bow's not tuned to that shaft, or you know, you can always broadhead tune. I don't do that as much anymore, but I like to see this. This is what gives me confidence on a broadhead. When I see a group like that, I can adjust to that and make sure that I'm ready to roll. So good group by the T2. Okay, here we go with our first 3-blade broadhead in the test. That is going to be the Tyrant. Looking forward to seeing how this one flies. I'm going to send a field tip downrange first just to get our aiming point. Here we go. This group actually for 3-blades is going to be pretty good, I think. 2.9 on group variance.
And then longest distance from the aiming point, okay, 1.79. 1.79 is our furthest group. Overall, man, real solid group. Again, we've been talking a lot about like that heart size at 40 yards. Man, that is half a heart right there again. So impressive out of the 3-blade group. Let's move on. All right, we are about to shoot the G5 Mega Meat here. Group overall though, 2.72. And then farthest distance from the aiming point, 2.88, 2.88. But, you know, 40 yards, we're within a racquetball for anybody that knows what that still is. Not horrible. That's all gonna be within a heart, half of the heart on a whitetail deer for sure. So that's the Mega Meat. We have got the Grim Reaper Whitetail Special. First arrow, headed downrange. All right, so we're still seeing out of these 3 blades, a little bigger group. So this is field tip here. So again, staying consistently to that right side, 3.48 for group size for broadheads. And then furthest point from aiming point, 2.86. Yep, that's less, and this is gonna be less too. So 2.86 furthest point from field tip or holding point, 2.86. So that wraps the accuracy test. Another great test here on the top 10 broadheads in the industry. Well, the TGR 2026 mechanical broadhead test has come to an end. And man, we have had so much fun over the last 3 days running these broadheads, both 2 blades and 3 blades, through all kinds of tests. Steel, ballistics, gelatin, scapulas, accuracy tests. Go through it all. We have done it over the last few days and we have had some fun. We have had some things that we probably would have guessed would have happened. We have had some results that were completely surprising. And we've had some results that, to be quite frank, were kind of disappointing as well. But it's all good. That's why we do these things. And hopefully we don't just learn from them. You guys learn from them too. And it provides you a little advice. Now, disclaimer, was this 100% scientific? No, heck no. Was there some redneck science? Heck yes, there was definitely some redneck science. We had a lot of fun with it. Did we learn some things or find out that there were some things that we were hoping to learn or to be able to provide you guys from an information standpoint that we couldn't? Yes, that was definitely the case. And I'll start with this right here. Reuse and durability, which we're gonna cover here in just a bit as part of our final grade for the competition. So what we started to find as we went through this is that we were a little miscalculated in thinking that we'd be able to use the same broadhead over and over again. We figured that out pretty quickly when we started performance testing on steel. Obviously, we damaged some broadheads pretty well, and we didn't want to take a risk in sending a broadhead into other materials or, you know, other tests with some deformities out of the gate and not allow for those broadheads to perform like they should in those cases. So here's what I'm going to do. From what we saw with each broadhead, I will tell you yes with a check mark or no on whether or not I would consider maybe putting new blades on a ferrule or just using it as it is, maybe with a new collar in some cases. So let's roll through that real quick. Let's start at the top. Beast TI. Yeah, I would probably give this the passing grade in some instances. The big outlier with the Beast TI is going to be whether or not there was chattering on the blades. If there were any nicks, pretty robust system overall with what we saw in the results, and it continued to perform. The only thing with that, well, it had nothing to do with reuse or durability. When it comes to reuse or durability, I'm going to give it the passing grade. The Hypo 2, yes, I'm going to give it a passing grade. Now, did we see a bent blade or two? Yeah, but the blades are replaceable. Did that ferrule hold up? Yeah, it held up really well, and it held up really well for the price, which is something else we'll talk about here in just a little bit. So it gets the green check mark as well. Oh, come on, there we go. Tri-pan, no collar. Man, with this one, I saw some doling of the ferrule on several of the tests, so I'm probably going to back off of that one. Man, the ferrule on those broadheads is hard to sharpen or resharpen because there's not really a flat edge. It's a point, so you're kind of going to get a dull point. Could it still perform? Maybe. In some cases, maybe. But I'm going to go on ahead and I'm going to give that one the X. Trypan plus P. This one, man, was just this super solid broadhead in everything we did. It performed at average or above average, and man, it just always looked pretty darn clean. I'm going to give it the green check mark. I would consider reusing a plus P, no doubt about it. Hypo no collar. Probably not, and I'll tell you why. The blades were 35 thou. That was something we talked about in the beginning. We had some 39 thou entrants. We had some 35 thou entrants. In a lot of the cases, you could see which were which, but what we saw with those blades, because they are big, sweeping blades, when they did bend, they created some damage in some odd places. So I would have some concerns about what was going on inside of the ferrule, just with what I saw, but still, just a good middle-of-the-pack performance. That said, I'm going to give it the no-go. Speed TI, no-go. And not necessarily because of durability. I just saw some things out of the gate that performance-wise, out of the package, I probably wouldn't have used some of these broadheads out of. So if I have questions about using the broadhead out of the package, why would I reuse the broadhead? So that one, it's getting the X. T2, ugh. Again, I saw some things on the ferrule that I probably wouldn't reuse them. In my experience with this test, what I saw, I would give it kind of the X. Now, does that broadhead perform? Yeah, it performs. We saw that, especially on the back end. I just don't know that it's going to be the most durable. We did see a lot of blade bending with that, but again, 35 thou blade. That seems to be a common denominator for most of them. Only question mark right here. Let's get into three blades. Tyrant. This is going to be the one broadhead in the three blade category that I will give a check mark to. The blades seem to hold up pretty darn well across the board. And to us, it seemed like a lot of the heat of the energy transfer or the punch coming out of these broadheads was being done by the tip of the ferrule, which was not that, stiletto type cut, that real pointy broadhead that you'd see, that needle style broadhead, more of a blunt tip, very similar to the muzzied days of old that you saw. And man, it seemed to hold up pretty well. The blade seemed to hold up pretty well. If the blade didn't, swap it out, So I would say that ferrule was pretty strong throughout the whole test. Mega Meat, unfortunately, I'm going to give this one an X, and I'm going to tell you why I'm going to give you an X on that one. The reason is that we saw some kind of crazy blade movement out of those, and if you guys understand how to replace the blades on a Mega Meat, you have to actually insert them from the back, ride them up into the ferrule, and man, with what we saw out of some of the blade movement, I can't tell you yes or no as to whether or not there was damage on the inside where that blade needs to follow the track to expand. So I'm going to put a question mark on that. I'm probably not going to reuse the Mega Meat. Ferrule was pretty sturdy on the outside in most cases, but I just don't know what's going on. I saw some crazy movement there. Whitetail Special, unfortunately, no. And then I'll just tell you right out of the gate, the Whitetail Special has a very, very long ferrule. And if it met any blunt force in the test, like, the steel test or the scapula test, we oftentimes saw a little bit of deformity out of that kind of really extended ferrule. And man, if you have a wobbly ferrule, as we saw with the Speed TI in the accuracy test right here, man, it's going to create some downrange issues. So I'm not going to reuse that. So you guys can see green checks, red X's, what I would use. All in all, we saw a lot of bent blades. We saw some lost blades. We saw some bent ferrules. We saw some bent tips of ferrules, but that's where we're at. So it is now time to tally things up, and we're going to get into things, and then I'm going to probably add a little bias for a couple of these that we saw as a team here that would allow for us to think a little more strongly about where we would position some of these broadheads. So by the numbers, here's where we're at. Beast TI, 22 total points. Now remember, the goal here is to score low, right? We gave a ranking system. 1 meant that you were at the top, 7 meant that you were at the bottom in the two blade category. In the 3-blade category, 1 meant that you were at the top, 3 meant that you were at the bottom. Obviously, there's only 3 contestants in the 3-blade, so you're going to see lower scores just generally. We are going to divide these up, and we're going to have a 3-blade winner, and we're going to have a 2-blade winner. So back to the Beast TI, 22. Hypo 2, 14. Trypan NC, 35. Trypan Plus P, 14. Hypo NC, 30. Speed TI, 40. T2, 25 total points. So, T2 category, or I'm sorry, the 2-blade category, winner is going to go in point total to one of these 2 right here. Let me come back to that after I read off the assessment score for the 3-blades. Tyrant, 9 points. Mega Meat, 15 points. And the Whitetail Special, 19 points. All right? So point total or lowest point total right here goes to the Tyrant. Now, let's throw in the bias. And this is what is going to help us define who actually wins. 2-blade category, 14 and 14. Hypo 2, Trypan Plus P. What's the difference between the 2? Well, the Trypan Plus P, bias-wise, is a product that 9 times out of 10, as a bow hunter, that's stepping up, shooting a 70-pound, 29-inch draw length. So let's say pretty common draw length and poundage across the marketplace. I'm not going to choose the Plus P. And the reason is because it says Plus P. Now, I've been trained as a bow hunter over the years that Plus P means that it's a broadhead for maybe lower poundages. You don't have as much blade to open up. You don't need as much energy. The guys that are shooting that broadhead are the guys that, you know, they aren't a 2970 in regards to spec. Maybe they're a 2660, and that's just going to be a quicker opening, easier penetrating broadhead. That being said, this broadhead, man, on multiple occasions had a wound channel over 1.75, and in many cases, it had a wound channel that was over 2 inches or close to 2 inches, when many of the 2-inch broadheads, stated 2-inch cutting diameter broadheads, didn't even have 2 inches. It held up very nicely. It was an awesome broadhead. I was super pumped about the results that came out of this, and I'm going to tell you, this is a broadhead that I am definitely going to consider shooting here throughout the fall. So I'm going to say, hey, strong performer, and I'm going to put over performer, strong/over performer. That was a big surprise to me. That's where my bias comes in there. Now, let's talk about the Hypo 2. What's so special about it? Well, you get 4 of them in a pack. Cost efficiency wise, that was the cheapest price per head in the 2-blade category of the whole pack. And look where it continuously scored. Boom, 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 boom. Tied for number 1 in point total. I'm going to tell you right now, like, it far exceeded my expectation. I can tell you right now that I have chosen personally in the last 12 months to use other Rage broadheads because of the price expectation that I had built in my head that came with this product. I assumed that, hey, if the guys at Rage were putting 4 of these in the pack and lowering that price per broadhead down to $13.75, when other comparants by the same brand were $16, $18 plus, it probably meant that they didn't have as good a material and it didn't perform as well in that broadhead. I couldn't have been more wrong. Matter of fact, when I compare these two, I'm going to give the win, the overall win, to the Hypo 2. So outperformed all expectation. I'm gonna give the win to the Hypo 2. Winner. Let's move into the 3-blade category. Let's define our winner. I'm gonna go on ahead and give you a little bias before. The Tyrant. I think the biggest point for me with the Tyrant is the continual size of the center or the punch of that broadhead, largely left by the ferrule and the offset of the blades, where those blades engaged. Almost every target that we shot with that broadhead had a hole, man, a hole. And I just have to believe that with the penetration capabilities that we saw out of that broadhead, you're gonna have really good blood trails out of the entry side of your animal due to that hole. It did well as it stacked up against the competition. It flew well, accuracy was strong, it cut well. The blades were by far the most durable blades that we saw out of the 3-blade contestants. I'm gonna give that thing an all-around score. I'm gonna tell you, if I were to see that thing on the shelf as a whitetail hunter, not knowing about the Tyrant, I wouldn't spend too much time looking at it personally myself because it looks big. That being said, it flew really well. Big usually means, you know, a lot of surface area to have influence put on the broadhead. It looks big. It looks like it could easily plane, but not the case. Not the case. So this thing really did a good job. Mega Meat. A lot of hype out there about the Mega Meat. I got a lot of buddies in the bow hunting world that shoot the Mega Meat. To see all the blades completely disappear on the steel test was an interesting thing to me. And then to see what we saw on at least 2 of the tests where we would get full deployment out of one blade, but partial deployment out of the other 2 blades. Interesting to me from a standpoint of if you hit that animal on impact, it tells me that you're probably gonna get one blade that fully deploys and 1 or maybe 2 that don't. And your wound channel is not gonna be as big as what it could. Now, broadside shot might be a completely different story in some cases, but I know that not every deer decides to stick its arm out and stop exactly perpendicular to me when I'm in the stand. So I want something that's gonna cover my hind end when I get into a peculiar situation in the field. So really it was the bias here really comes in what I saw out of the deployment performance. And price-wise, it's up there. Relatively speaking, it's a whole $2 more ahead over the Tyrant. So I had some expectations. Again, G5's a great company, still a good broadhead. A lot of deer get killed with this broadhead. Relative to the competition, it just didn't stack up in my opinion. Whitetail Special from Grim Reaper. Hey, Grim Reaper is a great brand. It's been around for a long time. Again, a lot of guys in the Midwest, a lot of guys in the Southeast, it seems, love Grim Reaper. Little different format of blade deployment on this. It's an over-the-top deployment, which you guys saw. So the cards may have been stacked against it in a little bit of a scenario there, but in so many ways, it is truly a contestant, a 3-blade contestant to the other 2 that most guys are going to have an option to buy. So I would say, like, man, unfortunately, again, deployment was a huge issue. A lot of that comes down to energy. It's going to take a lot of energy. If you're a guy that's shooting 80 pounds, hey, this may be a broadhead that you think about and consider a good bit because of the fact that with more energy, it's going to do better. That being said, a little too hard to open for me. Not going to get what I need out of it all the time. So unfortunately, I just didn't quite get it. But 3-blade winner, the Tyrant, right here. Winner. All right. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. I hope you enjoy watching the results as much as we enjoyed providing you the results. We saw a lot of eye-opening facts. It was cool to run all of these broadheads through these tests. Like I said, all these companies are great companies. We know many of them personally. They make great products. It's just when they stack up head to head, these are the results we got. So no offense to anybody. Man, we enjoyed this project. Really thank everybody that participated and hope you guys enjoy all of it that you get to watch at home.